Hi, everyone. I'm Rosemary Miller here with Stephen Ehrlich, the Director of Digital Assets here at Forbes, here to talk about Bitcoin surpassing 60K for the first time in over 2 years. Thank you so much for joining me today, Steve.
Right. Thanks, Rosemary.
So, Steve, why did Bitcoin surpass 60K today?
It really just comes down to the same three letters that we've been talking about for the last 7 months or so, or excuse me, 7 weeks or so, ETFs. There's been a big surge in demand for these products offered by the likes of BlackRock, Fidelity, Invesco, so on and so forth. I mean, in fact, I think about almost $15 billion in assets have flowed into these accounts and net some significant withdrawals from Grayscale, which is the industry leader. I think there's been a net of almost $7 billion in new demand, and just in the last couple of days or so, there's been unprecedented surges in demand. BlackRock itself brought in $520 million. This set a daily all-time record for them. So, what's really happening is that while I know we've spoken in the past about how Bitcoin had a habit of buying the rumor and selling the news. This occurred when Coinbase went public back in April of 2021, and when Bitcoin futures ETFs were allowed to trade in November of 2021. This is one of those cases where people were buying the rumor and they are also buying the news.
And speaking of surges, I know Coinbase even crashed today because of the surge. I mean, is this a time people should even be buying, Steve? This is the highest. We talked about this. The highest prices have been in over 2 years.
Yeah, it's really funny. There's a couple of rites of passage sometimes, or just things that always seem to happen in crypto. I mean, for one, there is kind of a saying among like the real crypto true believers that you're not one of them until you've seen your portfolio drop by 80, 90%, your crypto portfolio to be clear, and then you held on long enough to see it come back and then eventually surpass that. That happened during the ICO crash in 2017. That's happened a couple other times in the past, like long before crypto really became what it is today. So I have a feeling that for those of you watching and listening, if you were able to hold on through the bear market in 2022, you're obviously feeling pretty good about it yourself. And it's actually funny too. Coinbase also has just because of what I could assume is very peak demand. I mean, Bitcoin went up past 63,000, I think, right before we began taping. It is kind of, I mean, exchanges, and Coinbase isn't the only one, but it seems like there's a lot of focus on Coinbase going down due to overcapacity during times of peak demand. So that's just another sort of familiar reminder that we are in a peak hype cycle again. Now, your question about whether or not people should buy, it really just depends on your long-term outlook for Bitcoin. I never encourage anyone to buy just based on FOMO, fear of missing out. I mean, certainly there could be an argument to be made that there will be a slight retracement from this level. I think right now Bitcoin has already dropped from 63,000 to 61,000. I would not be necessarily surprised if it moves back into the upper 50s, just because of how steep the ascent was. There's always going to be a little bit of a pullback, but if you just think longer out, I mean, what's the real investment thesis for Bitcoin? Like, what's the case? This secure way to store digital value. These ETFs have made it unprecedentedly easy for people to get exposure to Bitcoin. I've seen some people on Twitter call it like Bitcoin's IPO moment, and then I mean, there's also a very bullish event coming up in about a month and a half, that the Bitcoin halving, which is going to reduce Bitcoin's issuance by half. So increased demand from these new channels combined with a supply reduction can certainly create the possibility of another surge in price. And Bitcoin right now, it's kind of broken out past its upward price channel that sort of began in October. And that began when the SEC basically gave indications that it was going to allow these Bitcoin ETFs to begin trading. So Bitcoin right now is in price discovery mode, and the next marker that the industry is looking towards is 69,000, 70,000, which is about where Bitcoin's all-time high is when it reached it in April and November of 2021.
Well, Steve, I was speaking with one of my colleagues before doing this interview, and I'm telling her that, like, oh, wow, crypto looks like it's back. And she was like, then why is everyone panicking so much during the bear market? And, that's a kind of valid question. It's always kind of come back. So why do we panic so much during a bear market?
I mean, it's easy for people to. I mean, or I guess the next rational investor I meet will be the first one, especially in terms of crypto. But it is scary. I mean, no one likes looking at their portfolios and seeing assets drop by 70, 80%. It's a scary thing. I mean, a couple of things that investors really need to keep in mind. I mean, this is an experimental alternative asset class, and I think it's important to really not keep more than maybe 5% of your total assets in crypto, because it is that volatile, and it is susceptible to hype cycles. So those things can happen. But one of the things that really always impresses me about this community is just how resilient they are, and how strong their belief is in what crypto is trying to accomplish, especially with regards to Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin, if it is, in terms of crypto, the safe haven asset, and that's the one that even if investors roll out of other assets, they'll come to Bitcoin, because I think it has the clearest value proposition. It has a monetary policy that is written in stone, or I guess written in code, to be more accurate, and cannot be changed. And then the other part too is just, I mean, the float of it is relatively small, that triggers like what happened with the ETF can help it to recover. But there are plenty of people that did sell out because they were scared of it not coming back, and there's such a strong community that always has faith that it will recover. And those people are certainly beating their chest today.
Well, Steve, aside from Bitcoin and ETH, let's talk about the other tokens and even the crypto stocks. How are they doing today?
Yeah, it's really kind of I think a bit of a story between the stocks and tokens that are seen as Bitcoin proxies and those that are not. I mean, to be perfectly clear, as Bitcoin goes, so does the rest of the market. So, I mean, pretty much the entire market is up these days. But a couple of tokens that I think it's very important for investors, when Bitcoin's going up, they're going to start to look into ways to maybe roll into other assets that have higher beta, that perhaps could outperform Bitcoin during some of these times. Stacks is one that's kind of seen as a complementary layer to Bitcoin that's supposed to provide like decentralized finance, DeFi capabilities to Bitcoin. It's outperforming Bitcoin over these last few hours, the last day or two. Ordi, that's sort of almost like a meme coin that was created on top of Bitcoin too. That's outpacing all of this. Although I, in a very non-financial advice way, would not recommend people buy that. It's really literally just a meme coin that has very little utility. And I'm seeing a lot of movement from on the stock point of view. Two miners that are doing very well today are Marathon and Riot. MicroStrategy, which I believe owns, I think, 10,000 Bitcoin at this point. It's the company is led by Michael Saylor. It's sitting on a massive paper profit. It's doing very well today, and Coinbase is surging as well. It doesn't really matter, I don't think, in terms of price, whether or not Coinbase has gone down. If it's not up already, it will be up soon, and I think it just kind of shows how much demand there is for. Actually, I think it's pretty bullish for Bitcoin, because one of the real concerns that investors have about Bitcoin is whether or not demand for Bitcoin brokerage services might drop in light of these ETFs. But if Bitcoin actually went down due to demand, that actually paints a pretty good picture for the fact that they're still able to generate retail demand for their transactions. So that's actually a pretty good sign for them.
Well, Steve, do you believe a price correction is coming soon, or are we going to the moon?
I guess that is certainly the $1 million question. I would not be surprised if we see Bitcoin drop back down below 60,000 today or in the next couple of days. I mean, the support level at that point would probably be somewhere around like 57,000 ish. As far as like going to the moon and where this could certainly go, I mean, long term, I see very bullish signs for Bitcoin. Again, the halving is historically an extremely bullish sign, especially for the 12 to 18 months post halving. So it's not necessarily something that will be reflected in prices right away, but probably by like the middle of next year. And as we enter 2026, that's really kind of when this will take hold. But at the same point too, as I'm saying all this, like Bitcoin could certainly skyrocket upwards even more. I mean, I would not be surprised if later today or later this week we see it past 69,000, 70,000, set a new all-time high. I mean, it doesn't mean it's going to stay there, but I think it's just a function of how the Bitcoin market is structured. There's so much leverage. I mean, people bet on these things with futures and options, and if the market goes against certain bets, it could lead to liquidations or short squeezes, and that could just create more buying pressure right away. And those things can happen. That could see Bitcoin go up, but that also is why I think it could go down. It's hard to make short-term predictions, but long term, I'm starting to see a lot of predictions saying that Bitcoin is going to, by next year, at the end of the year, 100,000, 150,000, 250,000. I don't think that those predictions are unreasonable, but at the same point, that those aren't necessary. Those can't be seen as guarantees either. Bitcoin's very much in price discovery phase, and I would not be surprised to see additional big gains, even if we do see a couple of corrections in the next couple of days or so.
Well, Steve, is there anything else on your radar that you believe should be on crypto investors' radars as well?
No, I mean, just the real thing that I would recommend investors consider. Don't succumb to FOMO. I mean, don't be afraid. Don't put more money into crypto than you feel comfortable with, because this market obviously can move violently in either direction or not. I mean, really sit down with financial professionals, your investment advisor, think about the long-term thesis that you have for crypto, how that fits into your financial plans, and make a reasoned decision. I have to check the price every day because it's my job. It's yours too, Rosemary, but most people don't and shouldn't. And just really, I know there's a lot of excitement right now. A lot of people are probably talking about it, but don't let that cloud your judgment on whether or not you want to invest in the space or how much.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Steve.
All right. Thanks, Rosemary.